please just introduce yourself and the book, please? That would be great.
Yep. So I'm Anna Sutton, the author and illustrator of Nesta the Earth Witch and the Cold Spell. It's the first in a series, so I'm working on the second one at the moment. It's about a witch who has a bird and a cat as her companion, and they travel around the world. They see how beautiful it is, but then they start to see sort of cracks, and they see things that they worry about. So things like the pollution, the plastic bottles in the ocean, woodlands being cut down, the melting of the ice caps, and they try and do something about it using magic. So it's a bit like a kind of modern fairy tale in a way, where magic meets environmental issues. So the magic isn't really strong enough immediately. She tries several spells, but eventually when she sort of really realizes how much the world means to her, and she and her companions get really very upset, her tears then start to make it get cold again. So that's her cold spell. And snowflakes start falling. And so in the end, she sort of sends a message of hope to everybody by dropping a snowflake to everyone in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's lovely. I mean, I'd have a little quick read of it again just now. And, I think, I mean, was that like the inspiration then, like the kind of current environmental issues and kind of applying that? Because obviously a lot of old fairy tales are about real issues. They're just disguised in this kind of
they absolutely are.
Way.
And I think so, because when you look at old, traditional, very classic fairy tales by Grimm or Anderson, all of their themes are sort of human nature or things that are going wrong in the world. Usually relationship problems, I would say, in Grimm and Anderson. And I just felt that you could combine a traditional, very classic fairy tale approach and characters with what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, was this like a long-term plan? Was it in terms of like illustrating it? Because it's really well illustrated as well. You did all that yourself, I believe, right? So,
thanks,
I mean, was that like a long-term plan, or was it just something you developed, like this passion for storytelling later on? Or like...
No, I've always absolutely loved fairy tales, particularly witches. I don't really know. I think it's probably because my mum used to read me fairy tales, and I used to look at the illustrations in detail, and I've always loved drawing, always loved writing, always loved reading, but particularly things like fairy tales, and with kind of characters like witches in them. So it was something that I developed, I suppose, over about a year of thinking about it, mostly because I've been listening to problems with climate change and pollution, and then also thinking about developing some characters that could kind of be linked into a story that might be able to bring together the two things, I suppose.
Yeah, because I suppose, it's not so much about the damaged relationships between the characters, it's between the characters and the planet, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
That's a really creative kind of way of doing it. And, I think the other thing is, I mean, what was it really like, actually, like, because I've read it and there's so many kind of very detailed scenes. There's like the kind of beauty of nature, and then there's like the kind of the destruction caused by humans damaging the
Yeah,
environment. And there's this kind of very
yeah,
creative bit where you is it you're using newspaper like as like trash to represent
yeah,
the sort of the pollution that's actually going on in the story. I mean, what was the kind of
yeah.
process there?
Well, I think what I was trying to do going through the story was just build up different elements of destruction.
Mm.
And when it came to rubbish, which that page is about, I thought, well, a lot when you're driving around or if you look around, a lot of rubbish is just newspaper and cups and
Yeah.
things that are either just blown around or that have not been put in bins.
Mm.
And I suppose rather than meticulously start drawing out newspaper, what I thought I would try and do is just scrumple up some newspaper and photocopy it. So it's literally photocopied, scrumpled up newspaper, and then I just cut out the sections to fit in around my drawings.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought I'd just see how it worked, and I thought, yeah, it does work. And
Works
then
quite
with the
well.
stars as well, because you hear, I mean, obviously you don't see unless you're lucky enough to go into space, but you do hear that space is even we've even
Debris in
managed
space. Yeah.
to, yeah. And so I suppose the stars made out of newspapers represents that in a way as well.
Mm. Yeah, because it's not just our planet we're polluting now. It's like every planet could be
It
possibly.
is. I
Yeah,
know.
it's quite a bad situation there.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
yeah. Um, Grace had mentioned something here about the inspiration from your Welsh Celtic background. Did any of that come into
Yeah.
play with the kind of magic designs and things like that? Um,
Yeah, well, I think just the the character Nesta, obviously Nesta is it's a Welsh name. It's my middle name, and I suppose there's a bit of Nesta in quite a lot of Nesta the witch in me, really, probably. She is a Welsh witch. So the next book that I'm working on at the moment is starts off in Wales. She's on the mountains in Wales, and um, I think a lot of my childhood was spent in Welsh cottages and
yeah,
walking mountains in the summertime, looking at the trees, looking at the rocks and the shapes in the rocks, the colours. So all of that sort of Celtic inspiration is from there. And I think it's just I come from a family of artists, really.
yeah.
My great aunts were artists. My grandmother was a writer. My mum, from the, the Welsh family side, my mum was a writer. And actually, I think when she died about 4.5 years ago, her death kind of inspired me actually to get writing. I
Mm.
initially wrote a story about me and my mum going shopping in the 1960s and 70s.
Oh
And
yeah.
I illustrated that. That was about our local town, but it was too kind of local and too
Mm.
specific. So then I decided to just use my memories of Wales and my memories of going on holiday with my mum
Yeah.
and my dad and family. And yeah, that's where it all
Mm.
comes from, really. Yeah.
Adding in a bit of the fairy tale imagination as well, I suppose, definitely
Yeah.
helps. Yeah, how's the next book coming along then? Is that are you already started writing that, or is it?
Yeah. I kind of had it in mind as I was already doing the first one, the cold
Mm.
spell, because I thought, well, this can lend itself to other stories, really, because
Yeah.
this one kind of touches on some of the things that the next ones will go into a bit more detail. So
Yeah.
I did write it about a year ago, and I've had several attempts at illustrating it, but I just didn't like them, so I've just kind of got rid of them.
Mm.
And now I've started again, and I'm really liking these ones. So I've changed Nesta's dress, changed her sort of hat design.
Yeah.
So also part of where it's coming from is my background in fashion design that I did at fashion college. So a lot of my
Yeah.
illustration is inspired by the fashion,
Mm.
and the Celtic designs as well. Um, so in this latest book, Nesta meets lots of birds as she travels around the world. So it's a bit of a focus on what's happening to birds. They're becoming endangered,
Endangered. Yeah.
partly because of things like the melting ice caps. So she goes to, well, a bit similarly, she flies around the world. She meets a robin, she meets a hummingbird, a flamingo. So birds from different countries. And then the magical star that they fly on takes them to the Antarctic this time. And she meets a rockhopper penguin who is desperately trying to save her eggs.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
so, and part of it is to do with some feathers that she collects along the way. So it's kind of much more specifically about birds rather than general destruction. Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose you're always constant, whenever you're writing the first book, you're constantly thinking about where the next one could go, and like the more ideas and what you can kind of more focus on, because of course, there's the bird character in the first book, so
Yeah.
it makes sense to kind of expand on that.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. I mean, are you more of a bird person or a cat person based on the
Well,
book?
I'm both really. The
Yeah.
thing is, I've got two cats
Mm.
and I love cats. And but because I've got the cats, I can't feed the birds because I don't want the birds to be caught by the cats. So,
Yeah,
but
you
I
got to be
love both.
careful.
I love them both. Yeah. So, um, yeah, I think it's the freedom that the birds have, that they can
Mm.
just fly off.
That
But
is so, yeah.
again, humans tend to do things that destroy
Mm.
birds and
We want to
their
keep them
lives.
down, don't
So
we? We want to, but they're meant to be free, So
yeah,
yeah,
but things like in the book, after she's seen the beauty of the flamingo and the hummingbird and the kingfisher and the robin and all the colours,
mm.
then they spot the fact that a thrush is being poisoned by a snail that's eaten gardener's pellets for
Yeah,
slugs. Um, and a swan's got caught up in a plastic bag, and just things that we do that we don't really think about
yeah.
the effect it's going to have, and we don't really see the effect very often,
Mm.
I
Yeah, I
suppose.
suppose I suppose that's kind of what the books are all about. It's about actually looking deeper into the issues and
Yeah,
the damage we're doing. On the surface it all looks okay, but really there's a
yeah,
lot of damage being done. Yeah. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, so hopefully we'll look forward to the second one eventually when it comes out. And yeah, best of luck with
yeah,
that. All right.
yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
coming along quite well. It's I mean, I've written it. I keep tweaking it. I mean, that's what I did with the first one. You write it, come back to it, make sure that the word length is not well over, um, and then but just I don't know. I suppose it took about a year really to get the words exactly as I wanted them with the cold spell. The
Yeah.
latest one is Nest of the Earth Witch and the Stormy Spell. And I wrote it about a year ago, and I'm coming back to it, sort of every couple of months, looking at it and seeing if I need to change things. And then also as I illustrate it as well, sometimes I change it slightly
Mm,
so
yeah.
that the illustrations fit in with the words, or the words fit in with the illustrations as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-proofing process. Yeah, that's what we like to
Yeah, it
see.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.